remembered working that night, and he had wanted to get the investigation gone because obviously an 8-year-old died.
Yeah.
Knowing that the kid died on the way to the hospital, obviously terrible. So he had called the medical examiner of Harris County and asked him if he maybe knew what could have been the cause before he had examined the child and before he was able to actually get there. The examiner had asked what his breath had smelled like, and when they found out that there was a scent of almonds coming from him...
Oh, no. Cyanide?
He guessed it was cyanide.
Yeah.
A later autopsy would prove that it was cyanide-laced. Apparently, there was enough in his 8-year-old body to kill at least 2 people.
Like 2 adult human beings, which...
2 adult human
in all
beings.
fairness, though, cyanide can kill you pretty easily.
The children that had been given the pixie sticks, aside from Timothy, of course, were safe, and the police were able to collect all the remaining ones before anyone had actually eaten them. There's an account that says that one of the kids had tried to open it and couldn't get it open all the way and had fallen asleep. He was a small kid and he couldn't get it open, so he just got tuckered out. He's had a long day. It's Halloween. And he was found with the pixie stick in his hands, but he was still safe. He wasn't able to actually eat anything from it.
Did all of the pixie sticks have the cyanide in them?
Yes.
Oh my god, all of them did?
All of them did. So when the police had started to go around to the houses to ask who was giving out pixie sticks, they couldn't actually find anyone that had been.
Yeah.
And when eventually they had questioned O'Brien, he said he couldn't quite remember where he had gotten the pixie sticks from. And eventually, after remembering that their trip was shortened by the rain that was happening, was able to point to a house that had laid dark, which they had knocked on the door of earlier that day. Mm-hmm. Investigators began the effort of narrowing down exactly where they could have come from. Even after the interviews were completed, it was determined that no one on the block had actually passed any of the pixie sticks out at all. Especially not jumbo sizes of them, because at the time they were a little bit more expensive.
Yeah, you'd remember that, I think.
Yeah. The only person that could possibly have done so...
Well, that's one of those things, too, where don't you think that some of the kids in the area would have remembered getting a jumbo pixie stick from the houses?
Exactly. There's a small amount of people that got them. Traffic controller Courtney Melvin hadn't answered his door during the Halloween festivities, and police had gone to his job to arrest him because that was the house that was pointed out as being the area that O'Brien had gotten the pixie sticks from.
I understand wanting to hold somebody accountable for it, but arresting him without having the proof seems a little rash.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that comes from a place of, oh my god, a kid died, so we're very angry about this, but to arrest somebody without knowing for sure that you have proof that they did something is... You know, especially if he was at work and not home.
Right, but they also didn't know that he wasn't home on Halloween. They arrested him at work a couple days later.
I'm angry. Angry about everything.
Through talking to about 200 others that had worked with them, as well as other neighbors, they realized that he had no ability to have passed out pixie sticks. Quote... It turned out he was working that night. His wife and daughter were home and had turned out the lights early as they'd brought out of candy, said Hinton. So they obviously released him because they didn't know quite what to do.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, with no other leads, they started looking into O'Brien and his semi-falsified stories. Eventually, they found out that he had some problems in his financial records. He was indebted to the tune of about $100,000.
In the 70s.
In the 70s. Additionally, he had lost his house and was in the process of possibly losing his car. He was a person that consistently lost his jobs, even though he was working in gainful employment as an optometrist at the time. It just didn't seem that a lot of his work prospects were panning out very well.
Yeah.
They'd also found out that earlier in the year, he had taken out life insurance policies on both of his children. And a little bit before Halloween, he had taken out 2 separate life insurances that totaled to $60,000 total between the original insurance policy as well as 2 other ones that were taken out a little bit before Halloween, about 2 weeks prior. O'Brien was arrested on suspicion of murder and the attempted murder of his daughter and several of the neighborhood children.
Yeah, that makes me so fucking angry.
Yeah.
Because, first off, you're already a terrible monster. Second off, Now we're going to, like, also target other people's children, too?
I know, but obviously there's a reason for that. Not a good one.
Doesn't make
clearly.
it okay, though. No.
Tests would later find that the top 2 inches of the pixie stick had been packed with the poison, and then staples were used to actually seal it back up, which is why the kid that was found with the pixie stick wasn't able to actually get it open.
Wasn't that how they used to be sealed, though?
You know, that's the thing, is I remember them being sealed with staples. And then I was like, wait, am I just imagining that they were? But I'm pretty sure they were.
I feel like they were.
Luckily, it saved a little kid, because he was just trying to, like, sneak his little candies.
Oh, yeah, because that could have gone poorly for literally every single one of those kids.
Before O'Brien was arrested, he had gotten angry with his relatives for not staying up the night of his funeral, of Timothy's funeral, which he thought was a little bit weird. He had written a song about Jesus and Timothy joining the Lord in heaven, and had gotten really frustrated that his family wouldn't stay up late to watch the recording that was shown on the news of him grieving his son.
That's weird. That's really weird.
The police found out later that he had called his insurers to ask about the payout about 9 a.m. the morning directly after Timothy's death.
Mind on my money and money on my mind?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He also had a pair of scissors with plastic residue that was similar to that of the top of the pixie sticks inside of his house. They also find out later that he was going to a community college, and in class he would ask his professor questions like, quote, "What is more lethal, cyanide or another type of poison?" Witnesses would say that he would ask them what the dosage was in order to be able to kill someone, especially the sizes.
What a weird, creepy question to ask me. Why would you possibly need to know that?
Yes. Before this incident had happened, a witness who had worked for a chemical company in Houston had told police that a man had come in to buy cyanide, but after he was told that the smallest amount he could buy was about 5 pounds, he decided to leave. Before that, he was asking the general dosage and how much he could get from retailers around the area. They had remembered that he was wearing a beige or blue smock, like a doctor, and that was the same uniform that he wore to work as an optician. After he was arrested, they tried to break him in interrogations. One of the people that was working on the case had said that he had felt that there's a breaking point where it seems like someone's going to confess, and he thinks he had gotten him to that point. But then he immediately retreated and told people he wasn't guilty. Even throughout his trial, although a lot of people feel like he was basking in the glory of the trial.
Like he was a victim, or he was into the fame? Or?
He was into the fame.
Okay.
A lot of people think that was happening, but he also still maintained his innocence then.
I wasn't sure if it was one of those things, too, where he was like, I'm the person here who's lost somebody. Like, everybody feel bad for me.
Right, which is what he was doing before he was arrested. Listen to the song I wrote for my child.
That you're...
How come you're not watching it also on the news?
Why won't you stay up late to watch this thing? Oh, I'm sorry, because this is, like, painful and traumatic for everybody that knew your child and loved him, and maybe we just don't want to revisit this every second of the day, too.
Yeah.
Just a thought. I don't know.
The press started calling him the Candyman.
Shout out to Carolyn.
O'Brien's lawyer during the court case, Morgan Teague, had in his opening statement said, quote, "As you know, my client was convicted of killing Halloween, and that ran rampant."
Fair.
Yeah, both pretty appropriate titles. The Man Who Killed Halloween, Candyman.
And Candyman.
Even during the trial, he would continue to maintain that his son had been poisoned by some weird anonymous monster who clearly didn't exist in the town. He kept telling people that all he saw were arms coming from the darkness of the doorway that handed him the pixie sticks. In some other cases, he didn't hear a voice. Sometimes he did. It's clearly a lie.
Yeah, that's why, like, the only kids that got these fucking pixie sticks were the kids in your group that, like, you and the other parent were watching over, right? The pixie sticks that, by the way, you came back with, he's the one that showed up and handed them to the kids. You gave those kids the pixie sticks. That's on you.
During the trial, O'Brien's wife, now clearly ex-wife, thank goodness, good job her,
yes,
had maintained that she was unaware that he had plans to kill their kids. She eventually divorced him while he was in prison.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good call, baby. Good call.
Maybe don't kill her baby. Maybe that thing.
Yeah, also you're lucky that you're locked out. You kill my baby, I come for you.
For real. Apparently, more witnesses came out during his trial that said that he was the most concerned about the lowest price on the cyanide. Nice time to penny pinch when you're killing your children. His ex-wife would later say that when he was told that his son had died, he, quote, beat the wall and asked questions out loud why an 8-year-old boy had to die. I didn't see any tears. Plus, he had talked to coworkers and a lot of other people asking about cyanide and what it would take to kill somebody.
I hate him.
I hate him. They never were able to find out because obviously it's the 70s, 80s type area. They weren't able to find out where he was able to acquire the cyanide or how and if it was absolutely him that had purchased it. But pretty sure it was him.
Yeah, we're feeling pretty positive about this. Okay.
He was convicted after 45 minutes.
Oh my god, that's so fast.
On 5 charges, 1 count of murder and 4 counts of attempted murder.
Good.
He was sentenced to death.
Good. I'm not usually in support of the death penalty. Like, I'm not about it, but, like, I'm not mad at it in this case.
Right, I agree.
Go trying to kill other people's kids and your own and succeed with one. You're terrible.
Yeah, there's mandatory appeals that happen, but one specifically was denied in 1979, as well as obviously subsequent ones after that, which brings us to
All of his appeals were denied?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Which brings us to March 31st, 1984, the year I was born, just a couple months before I was born. His final meal was a well-done steak. Why? I feel like that's kind of ruining it, right?
As a person who, my favorite meal in the entire world, I like a porterhouse, and I want that shit bloody as hell. I would like it rare. I just want a nice sear on both sides. I want a giant bloody steak, and then I want a glass of whiskey. That's a perfect meal. Maybe like a potato, some form of a potato on the side. Give those things to me.
Give it to me?
Give it to me.
Oh, no.
But whatever. We're here to talk about the Candyman.
His last words were, quote, what is about to transpire in a few moments is wrong. However, we as human beings do make mistakes and errors. The execution is just one of those wrongs, yet doesn't mean our whole system of justice is wrong. Therefore, I will forgive all who have taken part in any way in my death. Also, to anyone I have offended in any way during my 39 years, I pray and ask your forgiveness, as I forgive anyone who has offended me in any way. And I pray and ask God's forgiveness for all of us respectively as human beings. To my loved ones,
you better.
no kidding. To my loved ones, I extend my undying love. To those close to me, know in your hearts I love you, one and all. God bless you all, and may God's best blessings always be yours. P.S. During my time here, I've been treated well by all TDC personnel.
Texas Department of Corrections, or what?
Correct, yes. As he apparently was falling asleep for lethal injection,
yes,
he also said, God bless you all, and may God's blessing be always yours. Maybe you should have talked to your God before you killed your son and tried to kill your daughter and neighborhood kids.
Because I'm pretty sure that in most religions, that's not okay. That's not okay.
He agreed to donate his eyes for research and generally for cataract transplants.
How weird would that be to get the eyes of a murderer?
There's a really garbage movie about that.
Well, I meant like in real life. How weird would it be if you found out like you had the eyes of the Candyman?
They wouldn't know.
I know, but I'm just saying like how upsetting would that be for you to just be like, I have a piece of this person inside of me, helping me function.
I read something recently where someone who had killed themselves and donated their body,
like
organ
science
donations.
Organ donation, okay.
Someone who had acquired a piece of his body had also killed themselves pretty close to the date that person had killed themselves in the exact same way without knowing anything about them.
Whew, that is very strange.
Yep. Just after midnight, he was killed via lethal injection. People outside had waited, and when they got news of his death, they yelled and cheered and said, quote, trick or treat.
Oh, I have goosebumps. That is the quintessential Halloween horror story.
Yeah.
Because it is true, and it revolves around Halloween, and that is where the Candyman comes from. And I'm into it, but I'm also very mad at you because it upsets me greatly. Both of your kids, man.
Yeah, and neighborhood kids, so you can be like, no, it wasn't me. It must have been some maniac.
Exactly. As if your own children were not bad enough. You are going to try to rob other people of their children.
Right.
And it's just, what a monster.
Right.
Both of my sisters listen to the podcast, and we've heard from both of them that they get upsetty spaghetti when things happen to children, which I get because it's hard. It's really hard, but unfortunately it happens. and we cover true crime, and it's a part of true crime. We talk about it sometimes. Although comedy is an aspect of our show, like, we still definitely feel for these people, and we have all the emotions when we do the